Hey guys, I'm so excited. Welcome to day 3 of our 5-day movement challenge. We've got our kids moving and grooving and having a ton of fun, and we're building those brains. So far, we've covered spinning and we've covered inversions. And I just want to thank you for being here. This is my first challenge. I actually was at homeschool co-op this morning, so rushing back here to make sure that I can be here to share all of this fun stuff with you guys today. Thank you for being here specifically to take care of your kids, for all of the things that are going to make such a massive difference in their overall brain development and their happiness in life and their lifelong love for learning, which I think is just such an amazing thing you can be giving to your kids. And so we know that out there's pediatricians and people telling us that like our kids hit milestones when they hit milestones, and like you don't have to push it, you don't have to like make that happen. But the more that we learn about how the brain growth works and how that happens, that we develop from the brainstem up to the cortex, we understand that that's not true. The earlier it gets there, the bigger the advantage that the child gets specifically. And so my obsession with childhood brain development came from the Doman Institute and what they were seeing with these brain injured children and what they could accomplish with these brain injured children. And then they moved on to well babies and to see how we can do things on purpose. And that's what this is all about, is getting to be. The coolest thing to me is that, you know, even in Doman's program, it's all about like the parents getting to be the teachers of the child, which I think is just an incredible role that we get to have as parents. And so I know your baby will blow your mind if you like allow that to happen, if you continue to help and work that baby or your child on any stage of growth and development that they're at. Congratulations on being here. So let's start to dive right into today. Okay, see if I can get there we go. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit today specifically. Obviously, we've got our challenges going on. We've talked about day 1. We've talked about day 2. This week, we're just learning how to recreate nature's blueprint. We want that brain development through movement. Each day, we're going to learn a new principle, a new movement. And by the end, I want to see that no matter what age or level that your child is at, that we are progressing closer to that next milestone that they're coming in. You guys have taken the quiz. You shared with me what stages that we're at. We've got a good variety of stages, which I love. We know that it's important that to understand that our kids' brain development, and you're going to, especially with what we're talking about today, you're going to see the importance of why it's important to understand the brain level that the child is at. We talked about the history of milestones, right? We talked about the fact that milestones they're changing, and we're unfortunately our world is expecting less of our babies, yet our genes have not changed in 20,000 years. And so it's so important that we're giving our child the opportunity to reach their potential and to challenge them at the proper times. We also talked about how the brain grows from that brainstem up to the cortex, right? So we're going from the base up is the kind of brain growth that we want to see. We know we're going from a primitive role to like much more postural, which is all coming through the body, to more purposeful thought process where we're getting to conscious thought and conscious ability to learn, right? So we understand that how important that is. I shared with you guys my favorite analogy in the fact that when we are working with kids, it's that early brain development that functions much like compound interest. The more deposits that we put in, the earlier that we put it in, the bigger the return. The easier it is to move, the easier it is to learn, the easier it is to read. It's such an advantage that we can give our kids just by implementing things early into their life, right? We also talked yesterday specifically about how important milestones truly are in brain development and brain growth, that brain growth outcome of what specifically is being integrated into the body, but also understanding then how those milestones then build on each other, right? And so we understand that balance is that unsung hero. So we're dominating with different kinds of balances. First, we're starting with getting that head control, then learning the center of gravity and how to balance the body over that center of gravity, then being able to get up on all fours, and then getting on twos, and then being able to run and jump and walk, and then we're able to get to the part that we are able to actually learn, right? We know that each milestone feeds the brain so that we're truly impacting brain development, which I think is so important for us to understand. And vestibular exercises like spinning, like inversions, and the rest of the ones that we're going to be talking about this week are directly influencing our child's ability to download things into their brain. And so first, we're going to learn, before we get into those next movements, I want to get into one of my favorite brain principles. It's a huge principle when it comes to brain development, and the impact that vestibular exercises have on primitive reflex and integration and vestibular integration. So with this, what I want you guys to understand is that when we're talking about primitive reflexes, I get so many questions. Anytime I post on primitive reflexes, I get so many amazing questions. Let's start from the beginning. Like, what are primitive reflexes? So, when we look at a baby, a brand new baby, they do lots of different things that they just are primitively like designed to have. Like we're pre-programmed with these specific reflexes that are going to help our system in survival, right? So they're controlled by the survival part of our brain, which is that fight or flight area of the brain. But have you ever noticed like the crazy things that babies do? Like, for example, if you brush the bottom of a baby's foot, and just, stimulate that baby's foot like this, their toes flare, right? That's called the Babinski reflex. That's one of my favorite ones, which we're not talking about today because vestibular doesn't integrate that one as much. But you can also take your finger and just put a little bit of pressure and they'll grasp, they'll like hold right onto you, right? That grasp reflex. One of the coolest ones is that crawling reflex that happens right after a baby's born and they can crawl right up to the breast to breastfeed. Babies are built with these amazing abilities, right? They're called primitive reflexes, and they have a direct impact on our brain development, and we can stimulate them on purpose to actually help the brain mature. So you can see primitive reflexes are automatic movements that the baby's born with to help them survive. They're controlled by the lower brain stem. So we know that in order for us to go through, we got to know that, or go through brain development, we have to understand that we're going from the base of the brain up. So integration of these primitive reflexes is really important. Otherwise, if they don't get integrated, it's almost like there's something constantly talking to the child, almost distracting the brain from perfect learning, right? So each reflex helps wire connections for future voluntary control. So for example, with the Babinski reflex, that's coming out so that they have that ability to crawl and get their body moving. It's reflexive, it's not conscious, right? Same thing with the grasp reflex. At first, it's just a reflex. It's going to make them hang on to you. But later you're going to see that then they're going to have conscious control. And that's when we know that the integration of that reflex has taken place. So these reflexes, if they're left active too long, they can interfere with milestones and focus and even learning. And so it's really important that we do this like the way that we want to. So primitive reflexes do form at the hierarchy. They're at the very bottom, right? So they must integrate in order to like have really good sensory processing, coordination, language, and even higher learning. So to develop smoothly, we need to first make sure that those primitive reflexes disappear, right? And so every time your child rotates, hangs upside down, bounces, does any of these vestibular exercises, we're working on maturing the brain through those primitive reflexes. So let's get to talking about some of them specifically. So the exercises that we're going to be working on specifically today integrate these three primitive reflexes. And the Landau, we'll talk about that a little bit. It's not actually primitive, but it is a reflex that needs to be integrated as well. So we're going to get into these three. We have the Moro reflex. We're going to get deep into this. But what I want you guys to understand is even if you have an older child, okay, it's really important to understand these reflexes and how they can affect your child and why it's important to make sure that those reflexes have been integrated. I'm really considering putting together a whole program just on primitive reflexes because I think I could take a whole week and just talk about them because there's fun ways to integrate them. There's fun ways to test for them. And there's obviously so many fun ways to stimulate them. And so we're going to get mostly just into the stimulation factor of it just because we want to work to do everything that we can to integrate these reflexes. But be on the lookout for that sometime in the future. And because we're really here to stimulate that brain, right? And so we're building amazing brains with purpose and movement. Let's get into these three primitive reflexes on a little bit of a deeper level. So startle reflex, this is one that I feel like most people know all about, right? Is that when you bring that baby up and maybe drop, like make a bigger, quicker movement or a loud noise can be that too. You're going to see baby's arms go out and then in, right? And that's exactly what we want to see. This sudden movement is like a stress response that then helps them return to calm. So it builds a foundation for emotional regulation and sensory organization. If it's left inactive, they are going to be overreactive to things like light and noise, like things that wouldn't startle a normal person. They'll be like, what? And like you'll see their heart rate increase and they'll go into that state of fight or flight. Oftentimes kids with a startle reflex have motion sickness and they're typically pretty anxious and easily overwhelmed. So obviously we want those to be active at specific times of the life. You're going to see this start straight from birth. And oftentimes you can even feel this in utero, which is really fun. If you can, a dog barks or something like that, and you'll feel baby move inside of you, that startle reflex is actually active in utero. But it should integrate anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And so when we talk about integration, it means that we need to stimulate it, right? And so that's how the brain creates the connections between the brain and the body so that we can then mature this part of the brain, right? Like mature and be able to get the maturity of this part of the brain up to the next levels of the brain. And so it's really important to stimulate these as much as possible. Now, let's think about it. Are there things out there that interfere with our startle reflex? Actually, there's contraptions out there that are trying to make the startle reflex not happen, right? Swaddles are something that oftentimes are utilized so that babies don't wake themselves up because babies are sleeping on their backs, right? And so any kind of like sound or movement oftentimes will startle a baby and wake them up. So a lot of people want to strap them down and make sure that to calm that startle reflex. The problem with that is then they're not developing that part of the brain and it actually makes sleep worse later. And so I really encourage people. I mean, my kids hated them. I tried them for the first week or so, just because it is a transition from being in utero to being in the world. But I always recommend to my patients to, maybe the first 1 or 2 weeks you can utilize the swaddle, but then you really want to start to get away from that because otherwise it can cause issues later on with the integration of the reflex, but also just in overall quality of sleep, which I think is really important for you to truly understand. we understand that this also is huge with our emotional regulation. So kids that have lots of outbursts may not have, or they seem oversensitive to a lot of noises or a lot of actions. It's really important to check them and see if they have not integrated that startle reflex, because it makes the body stay on high alert, right? Because if we're stimulating that startle reflex and it's not fully integrated, you end up staying in a state of fight or flight, which is not a great place for growth and development, right? You're not going to learn the same if you understand the state of fight or flight. Our blood flow goes out to the extremities. You're ready to fight or flight. And the part of the brain that gets the most blood flow is going to be that base of your brain, because it's primitive. It's wired for survival. Okay. And so we want to help these kids get out of this state of fight or flight. So just remember that each time your child moves, and recovers, that they're learning that emotional regulation through their body, which is so, so important. And what's cool about this is vestibular exercises help integrate this reflex. And so sometimes you're going to see your baby startle. I know in my office, a lot of the times I'll take a new baby and I'm talking to the parent, and I'll just bring them like that, and you'll see those arms flail out and come back in. And sometimes parents gasp, and I'm like, okay, I want you to have a different perspective when it comes to the startle reflex, because it's actually developing their brain. It's giving their system so much input and so much maturity, so that they don't have distractions later on that oftentimes will delay their systems in milestones, brain growth, brain development. So the startle reflex is important. Startle those babies. Let other people startle those babies. And always, like, if they're crying afterwards, it's too much. You just have to know that. And so sometimes we have to go a little bit more, a little slower with some kids. And so just know that, just watch your child's response, and it makes such a huge difference. All right, let's hit into the tonic neck reflex. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you guys. I love this picture. This is actually Aria, my daughter, showing you that that asymmetric tonic reflex. They also call it the fencer stance. And so what you can notice about her, she's turning her head to one side. On that same side, her arm is extended out and her leg is extended out. On the opposite side, you can see that she's got that arm and leg both bent. Okay, so this is a reflex in the system, but until this reflex is integrated, it's going to be a little bit harder for the child to be able to do cross crawl. So like crawling is going to be really affected. And later in life, if it doesn't get fully integrated, it's going to impact our child's ability for handwriting and coordination. And oftentimes they're going to have a little bit of a difficulty sitting still. So this is present at birth. It should integrate between 5 and 7 months. And so one thing you can do if you have a baby right now, you can just turn their head, and oftentimes you'll see that they crunch that arm out. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. That arm goes extended out one way, that leg extends out, and you'll see these both flex in, just like the picture shows here. Ball rolling, rocking will also stimulate that cross-body communication. And so we just need to integrate this reflex. There's really easy ways to actually test that. You can get a kid on all fours, if they're an older child, and turn their head one way or the other. And if their opposite elbow is bending, like without them kind of consciously thinking about it, they probably haven't fully integrated this reflex. And so it's really important to do the exercises that can integrate these reflexes. The cool thing about primitive reflexes, you can always integrate them. So I think that's really important to understand. However, it doesn't mean that it's harder to integrate them if they're not done in order properly, right? And so that's why I am so passionate about letting moms understand what these are, and stimulating them is helping them. And they're so easy to stimulate, and it's always free, so that's the coolest thing that I feel like I get to experience with this. So let's look at the next one. Okay, so the Landau, I know I mentioned earlier, it's not a true primitive reflex because it's not present at birth. Okay, Landau is where you can see a baby's head come up. Usually if they're laying on their bellies, their arms are going to be up and their feet are going to be up. So they almost look like they're getting ready to swim. I think a lot of people will tease babies about that, right? Is like, oh, it looks like you're about ready to take off swimming. But they also call it a Superman posture. it integrates the extensor tone. So all the extensors, if you think about a newborn baby is oftentimes curled up in more of like what we call a fetal position, right? So this is a reflex in our system that's going to help our extensors work so that we can start to create a different kind of posture with our babies. Okay. And so it's going to help with core strength, spinal control, readiness for crawling, and readiness for walking. If it's weak, we know there's a possibility for like low muscle tone. You're going to see poor posture, which we oftentimes see in kids anyways. But if this is not integrated, these kids typically have really poor posture, even when they're 4 or 5 years old, and they have fatigue. It's almost like it's hard for them to stay seated over a long period of time. So I think it's important that we understand that this is one of my favorites because you can really see it. If you can see in that picture, my husband's like holding baby up and she's just real stiff, right? Stiff, and she's got her head up. Those arms are up. Her legs, if you could see those, are up in the back. And it's a great posture for us to be able to be moving baby up and down instead of that baby being limp like this, right? So that's how you're going to know if that reflex is engaged at this point. And so I feel like, when we're looking at the exercises specifically that we're going to be working on today, we are really truly going to be working on integration of these 3 reflexes. And like I mentioned before, no matter what age your child is. So if your child is already 4 or 5 and you're not sure if they have these reflexes, just know that the exercises that I'll be teaching today are working to integrate these 3 specific reflexes no matter what. Okay. And so that's something that's really cool. Now, before we move on to the next part of the presentation, being that we're going to start getting into movements, I want to tell you guys, I am going to do a giveaway today. I wanted to be able to give away one of my brain building checklist programs. It's one of my favorite programs. It's something you can easily add to a diaper change. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that at the end. But if you would, in the comment section, just say your name and say your first and last name if you can. And Madison, my assistant, she's going to pick somebody at the end, and we're going to be giving one of those programs away. But I want to give you guys the opportunity to go ahead and put those in the comments so that I can get you guys picked, and we'll get things moving from that point on. I'm excited to give one of those away because it's one of my favorite programs ever. Okay, so let's talk about today. We have gone through spinning, right? We know that the benefits of spinning is boosting balance and coordination. We know that it's going to help focus and whole body brain organization. It's one of the fastest ways to activate the nervous system for learning and movement. Spinning before school, it's like one of our things that we do every single day just because it wakes up the brain, right? And so I think that's really, really important to understand. Inversions, we've got into inversions. We know that activating that inversions are specifically giving the body a different kind of input, right? And especially it's a deep vestibular input because of the child being upside down, no matter what age they're at. It's going to improve vision and balance and integrate some of those primitive reflexes as well. And prep the brain for just higher movement. Inversions are just going to they're a powerhouse for sure. So now that we've got the vestibular system activated through spinning and inversions, we're ready to do one of the best integrating of primitive reflex exercise and build stability with my favorite piece of equipment, a ball. And so do you still have your ball, like your exercise ball from pregnancy? Because if so, don't get rid of it. If not, it's the best $15 investment that you can make because you'll use it for years and years. My kids, everybody loves this. My kids are still playing with it constantly. And so it's a great piece of equipment to have. And honestly, it's good for you too. So I'll give you a little bit on that too. Okay, so ball movements are organizing our sensory system in the fact that it's refining our balance and posture control. Our brain learns balance through movement and gravity, not through being still. So it's an unstable surface that we have to balance ourselves on. And so it's just giving us that opportunity to challenge the balance system. So when your child balances on a moving surface, their inner ear is talking nonstop to our muscles, our joints. This constant feedback is how brain development is taking place, right? We're responding and predicting gravity. It's the foundation for sitting, Upright in school for riding a bike, I think is really important, or just standing tall when we're sitting at the dinner table, right? It also organizes the midline and improves coordination. So ball movements actually teaches the brain to sync up both sides of the body, which is really important, essential for skills like crawling or even catching a ball, right? And then the coolest part, and this is, oftentimes people utilize these balls to get babies to go to sleep, but it does calm and regulate the nervous system, especially if you did it during pregnancy, right? Because the baby's brain and vestibular system starts developing in utero. So if we're stimulating the system at that point in time, you're going to see more benefits. You're going to see that linkage and that calming effect on your child. Just remember, this ball is not just a toy. Like a lot of my kids like to play with it like it's a toy sometimes, which makes me put it in the garage sometimes. But I'll bring it back into the house to make sure that we are still utilizing it for integration and training balance, coordination, and calm. So let's get into understanding a little bit more about that. What I want you to watch for is when you're working with your child, I want you to see that core engagement. I want you to see baby flexing and adjusting and holding themselves steady, especially as you're moving the ball around. This is their brain learning posture, and these tiny wobbles are actually massive wins for the brain development. So we also want to watch vision, right? You want to see that they're stabilizing themselves, looking around, engaging in their surroundings. And this is, creating one of the synchronizations of the brain that's one of the highest level of coordination. Okay. And so then we also want to work and see like that recovery and regulation, right? Every time your child wobbles or loses balance and then regains balance, that's a recovery moment that's important for integration of regulation of our emotions as well. So it helps your brain learn confidence and calm, like all at the same time. So we're going to start off talking a little bit about just utilizing this ball during pregnancy. So I'm going to get my ball out to be able to give you guys some more information here. I have a pink ball. See if it's pretty good. Okay, so what we want to do here is we're going to sit in a seated position. And when you're pregnant, this is great for opening up your hips. So let me move that. Thank you. Anyway, so we want to sit in this position where you can really like open up those hips, especially when you have a big belly here. You're going to open up those legs a little bit more. This is really good for your own postural muscles to make sure that you're staying strong through your pregnancy, because a lot of the times when we have a pregnant belly and the weight of our head, the weight of the baby is creating that anterior pelvic tilt. When we stimulate our sensors back here just through balancing on the ball like this, we're actually bringing strength back to those so that they don't get too weak. Because when they get too weak, that's oftentimes when we get back pain. So this also, again, especially later in your pregnancy, that's typically when people want this, they are going to be stimulated. You're going to be stimulating the baby's vestibular system from the beginning. So exercise, movement while you're pregnant is going to create a stronger baby that's going to have already integrated a lot of those balance principles, even though they're stuck in utero. Okay, just experiencing that movement. So bouncing on the ball is great, but know that this is going to be calming for them once they're born. So we're going to get into the first one. The first exercise for our stage one for our bobbly babies, when they don't have a lot of head control, I love to lay babies straight across my lap, just like this. And actually, this is a great time to have dad take baby, because, this is a great way for them to have a purpose, that purposeful brain development. But it's also very calming for baby. It does count as tummy time, which is really great. So being able to do this, you can rock back and forth. Obviously, you want to feel good and stabilized on the ball. I would typically put my hand over baby in this way, but they're getting that vestibular input. But they're also super comfortable on you. I personally like to lay them across my lap. You can always bring them up this way as well, but this way you're not going in that horizontal plane. So I truly recommend keeping baby in this position, but I mean, you can nurse baby on the ball if you want to, and just continue to give them that stimulation of vestibular input along the way. The next one is our roly-poly. So this is where babies are going to have a little bit more head control. And so here, you're gonna just get baby face down. I love having baby face down on the ball in this way. I will typically kind of prop them up a little bit, like almost like they're in tummy time. But there's lots of movements, and especially if you follow me on my Building Brilliant Brains page, you're gonna see that I spend a lot of time teaching about the ball exercise. So there's lots of things that you can do. This is really at every level that we talk about today, but you can be rocking that baby back and forth. You can go side to side. See, like even just my doll here, right? Like you can see that is giving motion into those postural muscles so that baby can really get stronger and they're not getting stronger in their posture. You can always bounce them a little bit up and down that way as well, and they will love it. And you'll oftentimes see that they'll just pass out because when they've got enough input, a lot of the times it's time for them to just fully pass out, which is really fun. The next thing is getting into this creepy crawly. So babies that are not fully up on all fours, you can actually place them up on the ball on all fours. So giving them that, obviously this is the doll, so a little bit harder, but being able to put them up here, you can hold their feet and hold their hands if they're not wanting to like stay up in that position. But putting them up in that position and giving them that vestibular input is going to increase their balance on all fours. You can do a little bit of bouncing. You can go back and forth. You can go side to side, whatever movements you want to utilize there. It's also great, and you'll see this too, but you can also put them on their back and be able to go back and forth that way. This is a great way to integrate the startle reflex. And so being able to put baby on their back like that, a lot of the times, especially at this stage, they should be starting to integrate that reflex. If you're seeing those arms flail out, you know you've got some work to do when it comes to the startle reflex specifically. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next one. So wobbly babies. So here's where we can, those wobbly pockies, I guess I should say, here's where we can oftentimes be putting baby back and forth this way, like I mentioned before. They're gonna love that. They're gonna actually, you can also sit them up. So they have now mastered the horizontal plane, so it's time to move on to the vertical plane. So instead of standing them up on the ball, I wanna wait to do that for a little bit, we're gonna sit them up on the ball. So you can give them that exact kind of same input, bring it back this way. Bouncing, we can go back and forth, side to side. Kids absolutely love this. You will get some of the biggest smiles with this part of it. And then you can always head back to the exercises that you were doing before on their belly or on their back, specifically at this stage of the game. Next thing is the study strategies. So one of the things that's really fun, I wanted to bring one of my kids in, but they actually had to leave. So is be able to do a little bit of flipping off the ball. So this is really fun. I like to do this over a mat just to, obviously soften their landing a little bit. But as they come back, they'll put their arms up. And as they put their arms up, you can help guide them over and actually allow them to flip. They're going to want to do this all day long. It's so much fun for them. But being able to get them a little bit of that input and then going ahead and letting them put their arms out and then allowing them to flip over is a really fun exercise, especially for this stage of development. The next one I'm going to show you is, I didn't bring some rings, but if you can see the picture there, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see this picture. What she's doing is I actually have her over the ball and she's got things to grab, which is really fun. So you can actually bring them close down to the rings, and they're able to grab those rings and bring them back as they move up the ball, which is really, really fun. And so that's just another thing you can utilize a lot of different things for that. The next one, sorry, I didn't put this picture in here, but jumping on the ball with assistance. So here's where I like to pin the ball between like a piece of furniture and me. And I'll have my kids stand on the ball, right, like this. And I'm just going to help them bounce a little bit, almost like a little trampoline. But it's kind of fun, too, because especially if you have, I like to put it up against a couch. And you can follow it with them and have your hand on one hand and allow them to kind of walk on the ball and let the ball walk back and forth. This is incredible for their balance, right? This is a great way, especially if we're working at, developing athletic prowess. This is such an important and amazing way to go about things. The last one, I'm going to show you my skills. So my kids absolutely love to get on this ball and do all the balancing acts that they can. And so one of the things that as they get a little bit older and they understand the balance and the movement there, you can actually get up onto the ball, squeeze that ball like between your knees and be able to balance this way. And you can do things like circles, can go back and forth. Lots of cool ways to go in that way. Makes sense? Okay, I just got a quick question. Can these exercises help premiers? I'm guessing it's preemies catch up, but absolutely, yes, preemies. Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing is that you have to really pay attention to how they are responding. We don't ever want to like over. There is this such thing as overstimulation. It's pretty hard to overstimulate a child. But at the same time, it's one of those things you can tell by their face. Like, are they having fun? Are they starting to cry? So the biggest thing is if you're doing an exercise that's making them super upset, then we want to back it up a little bit. So maybe we have to, if it's a child that's, if it's a preemie, you can just start with the little movements, right? So rocking, moving them back and forth, getting them on the ball, laying them face down, like all of those things are going to really make a huge difference. But just really understanding that they're going to probably need a little bit more attention, a little bit more time at each stage to help them catch up for those milestones. And so I think it's really important to understand that even preemies, they still develop the same way, and so they just have had less time out here, or I guess they got out here, they had less time in utero, right? They had less time to develop in utero, but you can do so many of the same things, so many things to make sure that they are able to catch up in that time period. So those are our specific things that I wanted you guys to learn, and understanding that pregnancy and posture with the ball, it's not just pregnancy, it's really for all of us, right? We can all utilize this ball for so many things. A lot of the times, if I'm doing a lot of work on my computer, I'll pull the ball out so that I'm not sitting on just a stationary surface, because that's never good for us. That sedentary, like lack of motion, like I've mentioned so many times to you guys before, it's so important that we are constantly moving, because it's a nutrient for our body. Our body doesn't like to be still. That's not what we're designed to do. So I think it's really important to like understand those pieces specifically. Okay, let's go ahead and recap today. We talked a lot today about our primitive reflexes, and sorry, I'm just going to pull my notes up real quick. Primitive reflexes and how they integrate for smooth brain development. We talked about primitive reflexes can integrate later at any time, but there's a struggle that goes with it, right? And so why not really understand the brain, understand the growth and the development, and understand the easy things that we can do that can just help our systems overall integrate those reflexes, so we don't have the distraction later, so that there's not something constantly trying to pull us back into that fight or flight. I've got homework for you today. I want you guys to each day do 2 to 3, like really probably 2 times a day, doing these ball sessions. They literally, if you do all the motions, it will take you 2 minutes. Like, it's not a long thing, but just having that ball ready for you gives that child that input. Your kid's going to love it. It's going to be a bonding experience. You're going to just absolutely love it. Notice how your child's head and eyes and core respond. Take note. And it's really great even to take some videos, just setting your camera up just to see like how they are. Because after even 5 days of doing these motions, you guys, you'll see a difference in your child's posture and your body and their child's ability to have like that brain body connection. It's really incredible what kind of changes you can see in an absolutely short time. And don't forget to be spinning and to be doing those inversions and developing a program that really is integrating all of these things. So it's giveaway time. And so I'm not sure if I've got my winner yet, but I want to describe to you guys a little bit of my program just so that you can really understand it. Every developmental skill that we care about, posture, focus, reading, handwriting, coordination, all depends on our vestibular system. So the more that we are training our vestibular system, the more that we are going to see the benefits that way. So with vestibular, that is only one pillar of the 7 pillars of brain development. And so that's what I want to talk about with this program specifically. I'm giving you my brain building checklist, and it's a progressive checklist. So, we've got stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, and most of the activities are different. There are going to be some that overlap, but for the most part, these activities are really different. But we're not just looking at vestibular, right? I have a program that's just vestibular too. That's my Milestones Masters playbook, which I'll give away, I think, on Friday. But this is going to incorporate all of them. So we're doing things for language, for fine motor, for gross motor. Now, one of the things that I think people say all the time is like, wow, that sounds like a lot of work, right? Guys, this program takes 5 minutes. Okay. You want to do it several times a day, but what I did when my babies, especially when my babies were little, it was every diaper change. So this is for kids that are 0 to 24 months. That's what this program is specifically made for. So sorry if your kids are older. If you win and your child is older, we'll be doing, I can give you the Milestones Masters playbook, but we are looking at all of these 7 different kinds of things. Vestibular is included in it, so that in 5 minutes a day, how easily we can do this. And it also, so this is what it looks like. It's going to include the program specifically as far as the checklist goes. There's videos to every single one of the movements. And then there's resources. Most of the things, the tools that you need to be able to stimulate the things that we're trying to stimulate, you can find around the house, but I also have Amazon links to them. So if you don't have them in your house, that they're easily something that we can create. So the winner is Ellie Smith. So you'll receive an email with us with the product. Thank you so much, guys, for being here today. Again, I just want to congratulate you, acknowledge you for taking the time to learn this stuff for your children. You guys are amazing people. I'm so excited for the last 2 days, 2 more days coming up. And so now I would love to get into some questions and answers. I see a bunch of comments popping up on the side. So if you have questions, send them to me. That's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this free challenge, because I want to be able to answer these questions. So our first question is, how do I know when my baby is ready to go from stage 2 to stage 3 and so on? Okay, so that's like what I really encourage you to do is that it's going like every few weeks or so, I would retake the quiz, because it's the milestones, it's the things that they're able to do with their body that's going to give you that ability. So for example, from stage 2 to stage 3, you've got, to get out of stage 2, your baby's going to be rolling front to back and back to front. Okay. And so we know that all the exercises that are in stage 2, or the vestibular exercises that we're doing in stage 2, they're really working to get baby to understand that center of gravity and the fact that they're able to move from side to side in that specific way of rolling. And so that's how we're going to know that it's time to go. There's a benchmark for each stage that is a milestone that we're working to hit, because we know that the milestones, remember, are directly related to the level of that brain growth and development. So that's how you do that. If you have more questions about that, let me know. Next question, my baby is 1 year old. He pulls himself up, but always stands on his toes. How can I help him to rest his feet to stay flat? Okay. This is one of my favorite things that I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could figure out a way to incorporate that. It's not really vestibular, but great question. I love skin brushing. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that is on my page a ton. You'll see a ton of that. But when babies standing up on their toes, if you think about it, they're sensitive on the bottom of their foot, typically. They either that, or they have too much tension in their body. You're going to know that. Are they a really tense and stiff person anyways? But regardless, you need to stimulate the bottoms of the feet. Okay. So rubbing their feet, pressing into their feet. I sometimes will even take toothpicks and put like 5 in and put a rubber band around it and just prickle their feet. The more input you can get into their feet, the less they're going to be sensitized there. So they're going to bring those feet down. The Babinski reflex may be still active in your child at 1. 1 isn't super late to be doing that, but it might be that that's why they're staying on their toes. And so therefore you want to rub that foot up the side. Let me see if I can show you, but you're going to want to bring that, like just run your finger on the outside of the foot. If you're seeing those toes flare, the Babinski reflex is still there. So it just needs more stimulation. Keep that baby in No shoes as often as you possibly can. Get them on tons of surfaces like grass and rocks and mulch and all the things so that they can get a lot of that input into their foot. Oftentimes when there's a lot of sensory stuff, they'll actually lay those feet down. So I hope you find that helpful. Next question. All right. Are we looking for Landau to engage rather than disappear? Okay. Depending on their age, right? And so early on, right around 3 to 6 months, which honestly, if you're working on brain development, you're going to see it even earlier, right? You want to see that engagement. But there's a point like around 9 months old that we should start to see that disappear, that they're not just constantly in that extended state. So extension like that is good to create the posture, but it's reflective to create the posture, but then we need it to disappear so that it's not controlled, so that they can consciously control their posture. Does that make sense? So we want to make sure that it does get stimulated, which it typically will show up right around 3 to 6 months old, but then it should also disappear. And so we want to, so that is a little bit confusing, but we want to see it engage, but we also want to see it disappear and integrate. Okay, big question. I asked about the RIE yesterday and was thinking about it more, and your methods would work with this approach, resources for infant educators. I did. I'm glad you're saying something, because I did look this up yesterday. Ask that the baby be allowed to develop skills naturally without interference. And this doesn't seem to interfere with, only enhance. And that's exactly right. Thank you for saying that, Elle. Yes, we believe the same thing. You know, I think that a lot of people, like pediatricians and different, not all pediatricians, but like a lot of people will say, like, just let them develop, let them do their thing, let them go. The thing is, though, is we have to understand our environment is not set up for these babies. We are putting babies in contraptions that are confining their movement. We're laying them on their backs all the time before they even have the ability to lay on their tummies, and they're just spending time almost like a turtle on their back, not able to get any input when we're laying on our back, right? We want to flip those babies over onto their bellies as much as possible. But all the contraptions have babies laying on their backs, right? And so if we have a bunch of gadgets, if we have a bunch of those baby gadgets in our house, like the environment is not set up for success for a child, especially primitively how we're designed and blueprinted to do brain development. And so we need babies moving, we need them on their bellies, we need to give them the opportunity to develop their own brain and not have them strapped down like we oftentimes do. And so I believe that a lot of the things that I love to teach is exactly what you said. We're here to enhance the brain's ability to develop, and to develop it on purpose. And I think that's like the most important thing. But I think a baby-led experience, I think it's just so important to read your baby, listen to your baby, see, is your baby enjoying these things, you know? And if you know that they should, then we've got to figure out how to get them there, you know? And it's only going to make them enjoy life more, which I think is really important. All right, my baby started crawling and does not sit yet. Please, can you tell me some exercises for an 8-month-old? Big halo from Serbia. Okay, absolutely. I would not worry about it. Number one, it's okay that baby isn't sitting. If they're up and crawling, they have the ability, okay? And so I will show you one of my favorite exercises, because typically when it comes to a baby being able to sit, it's a lot of core involvement. And so I love what I call tiny tornadoes. So imagine they're sitting on a surface here. You're going to get them almost like on their butt, like their butt is the pivot point, and you're going to bring them around like this. And you want to see their legs are going to come up and they're going to engage almost like their little boat. Okay. And you're going to bring them back and forth and back and forth. If you want to, guys, I can send this video to you tonight so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. It's kind of harder to do on a doll, but it's awesome for activating core engagement, and it really gets them all the muscles they need active to be able to sit. And so the other thing that I would do, since your baby's already up and crawling on all fours, is go ahead and do the next exercise for those wobbly walkies where they are sitting up, because typically most babies will sit just right before they crawl. You know, that's at least how my kids always were. It's like they'll sit up right before they crawl. And so I think that if you can sit them up on the ball and do some bouncing that way, that's going to really help build their balance for the ability to sit up. Because that's all that is balance at that point. Because you know they have the strength to do it. And so sitting up is the big thing there. What do we do if baby resists being kept on their back on the ball? Okay, so if they are trying to roll over or trying to move in those specific ways, I would follow your baby a little bit, but also I would be concerned, like, are they startling a little bit? I'm not sure if you're seeing a startle with that. I think it's okay to go ahead and do maybe 2 or 3 rock and rolls back, kind of forcing them to stay on their back, but then let them move freely. And like I said, you want them to have fun. You want them to make sure that they're loving those positions. And so my biggest thing was I would say try it multiple times every day. Okay. And even if they're resisting it, I think it's important to go ahead through 2 or 3 and then let them go and let them move on. But I think that you want to integrate their system, because that's another inversion. So maybe try some new inversions as well, but that's a great exercise. So you want your baby to be able to do that. Great question. Any advice on developing fine motor skills for a super active baby? Absolutely, my favorite. Okay, so I love the grass reflex. Grass reflex has a lot to do with our fine motor activities, and so hanging. So if you follow me on Building Brilliant Brains, that's probably what my page is most famous for, is the fact that I love to teach babies to hang. And so it starts with the Palmer grass reflex at 8 months old. I don't know how old your baby is. Just an active baby. Then we know that like it can be a more conscious thought. So I love getting like a dowel rod, or you always use your thumbs. I'm gonna sneeze. Your thumbs to utilize or to be able to, sorry, I'm getting a sneeze. Okay, maybe not. Anyways, we want, the biggest thing is engagement, right? You want baby holding on to you not holding on to baby, but the progression of things that you can do with your child once they're able to hang, this is helping their fine motor skills. Okay, so you think, oh gosh, that's a big movement or whatever. It's actually so important for the development of those fine motor skills, because without integration of that specific reflex, he's 7.5. Okay, great. Yeah. So this is like, you just really want to, you can get out a dowel rod, anything that you can do that to get them hanging. Another thing too is like a lot of different rattles and things like that. They can like pinch those as well. That's a great way to work on those fine motor skills. But grass reflex and hanging is one of the best things you can do. It's going to improve kids' handwriting later on, and all those things. So that's one of my favorite things to recommend for that specifically. Will the quiz be active for that long? Oh, meaning is it going to just be out for yes, I plan to keep that. Actually, I hope to improve it even. I love this quiz. I've been wanting a quiz like this for so long. And if you see with my brain building program right now, it is based on months, which is not how I teach, because I couldn't figure out a way to like get people to understand their brain levels. That's why we developed this quiz. The quiz is being really successful in allowing us to really understand where a child is at, to know what stage to put them in. So there's now a stage converter. So we'll put that in especially as we give that program away today, but as people buy it in the future. And so, yes, I plan to have this around for a very long time. So yes, otherwise you can always contact me. Any other questions? Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a ton of fun with your kids as you're starting to do these programs, as you're starting to do spinning, inversions, and now these ball exercises. I've got 2 more awesome action-packed days for you guys in the future, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow at noon. Thanks for joining.